Hey guys, if you've been sitting on the sidelines waiting for a perfect time to buy a home in San Ramon, I want to talk to you guys today because right now in mid-2026, something is happening in this market that we have not seen in years. And most buyers are either not aware of it or they're letting fear keep them from taking advantage of it. And before I get into all of that, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Adi Katav with Valley Ventures Realty, and I've been helping buyers and sellers navigate the Tri-Valley for the past couple of months. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly what's different about San Ramon and the market right now and why it actually favors buyers and what you should be thinking about if you've been on the fence. So let's get right into it. Now, before I make my case about why you should buy, I want to be upfront about two things that are making a lot of people and buyers specifically hesitant right now, because these two things are very real and I don't want to pretend like they don't exist. So number one is mortgage rates. Right now, the 30-year fixed rate is hovering at around 6.5%, and Freddie Mac's latest survey puts it at 6.52%. And this is not the 2.5 to 3% world that buyers used to get back in 2020 and 2021. So I completely get it. The monthly payment math is very different right now. Number two is economic uncertainty. Unemployment has been ticking up. There's some turbulence in the tech sector because of AI, and there's a general feeling of, I don't know what's going to happen next. And that nervousness is 100% understandable. And if either of these are a real personal constraint for you, if the rate genuinely doesn't work for your budget or your income feels very unstable, then waiting is the right call, and I'd tell that to your face. But here's the thing, right? If the rate is manageable for you, and if your job is stable, then the conversation completely changes, because what's happening on the supply side of the market right now is the real story. So let's talk about what makes this moment genuinely different. For years, and I mean years, San Ramon was a seller's market with almost very little inventory, right? Buyers were competing hard for small numbers of homes. There were bidding wars, waived contingencies, and you're paying significantly over asking price. That's the norm. So here's the historical context a little bit for you. In June 2021, San Ramon had roughly 22 homes for sale. 1 year later, that number had jumped to over 100 active listings, nearly 5 times more supply in 12 months. That kind of shift in inventory changes everything about how a buyer and seller negotiate. Now, fast forward to today, inventory has continued to climb. Realtor.com reported 80 active listings as recently as December 2025, up about 39% year over year. And by early 2026, Zillow was showing over 100 homes for sale in San Ramon at any time, right? We're also seeing days on the market increase. Properties in San Ramon are now averaging anywhere from 27 to 54 days on the market, depending on the source and time period, compared to 8 days in 2021. And here's the number that really tells the story for buyers. Homes with price reductions. In San Ramon, that share went from about 5% to nearly 20% over the past year. That's a very meaningful shift. And it means that sellers they're adjusting their expectations. And that gives you, as a buyer, something that you haven't had in years in this San Ramon market. And that's actual negotiating room. So what does all of this actually mean for you as a buyer? And it's a few things, right? First, you have choices. When inventory is low and 10 people are competing for the same house, you take what you can get. You don't negotiate, you don't ask for repairs, you don't ask for credits. You usually go above asking in a bidding war. And right now, with more homes sitting longer, you actually have time to evaluate your options. Second, you can negotiate. The sale to list ratio in San Ramon has come down to around 98 to 99% for a significant portion of transactions. That means that buyers are, in most cases, purchasing homes below the asking price. That was almost unheard of just a couple of years ago. Now, third, sellers are more flexible. When a home has been on the market for 30, 40, even 50 days, the seller's psychology changes. They become more open to concessions, such as price reductions, closing cost credits, repair allowances. So you have leverage that you really didn't have before. And fourth, you're getting into this market ahead of a potential shift. If rates do come down, and forecasters like Fannie Mae are projecting rates could move lower towards the year end, demand will 100% come back. More buyers will enter the market, and that negotiating window that you have right now currently could close very quickly. Now, I want to address the thing that I hear most often. hey, Adi, I think I'll just wait until the rates drop. I think that's the better option. And right now, I want to actually walk you through what that looks like. So here's the reality, right? If rates drop significantly, say to 5.5% or lower, what happens? Every buyer who's been on the sidelines comes back into the market at the same exact time. That increased demand pushes prices up like crazy. So yes, your rate is lower, but you're paying more for your home. You may end up paying the same in monthly payment or higher because the price went up to meet the demand, right? So the difference is that right now, you get to buy at a price that reflects today's hesitancy. You get to negotiate. You get the sellers to contribute to closing costs or buy down your rate. And if rates do drop later, you refinance. That's it. That's the play. There's an old saying in real estate, you marry the home and you date the rate, right? It sounds simple, but it's really what this moment is about right now. The home you buy is a long-term decision. The interest rate is not permanent, right? Now, one more thing I want to address, why San Ramon specifically and not just any market? San Ramon is not a speculative real estate market. It's fundamentally a very strong city. You have top-rated schools in San Ramon Valley Unified School District, major employment hub at Bishop Ranch, close proximity to Silicon Valley, and the 680 corridor, and a consistent track record of long-term appreciation, right? So if you look at the historical data, San Ramon's median sale price went from about $1.25 million in 2020 to over $1.9 million at the peak in 2022. Even with the current softening, median prices are still in that $1.3 to $1.45 million range. This is not a market that's crashing, right? Definitely not. This is a market that's correcting from an overheated period. And that correction creates a window. So if you're a long-time buyer, someone who plans to be in San Ramon for 5 to 10 years or more, you're buying into a city with real staying power. Great schools, strong employers, quality of life. Those fundamentals don't go away regardless of how the market is. Okay, guys, with all of that being said, here's the bottom line. I'm not trying to tell you that right now is the perfect time for every buyer, because it's not. If rates genuinely don't work out for your budget or your employment situation is uncertain, that matters more than any market trend that's going on right now. But if those things are stable for you and you've been watching and waiting and you just weren't sure whether now was the right time to buy, I want you to know that the conditions in San Ramon right now are as buyer friendly as they've been in several years, right? More inventory, more days on the market, more price reductions, and more seller flexibility. And that combination is very rare in a market like this. So if you want to walk through what that looks like for your specific situation, your budget, your timeline, the neighborhoods that you're considering, reach out to me directly. Like I said, my name is Adi Katav. I'm with Valley Ventures Realty. My contact information is below. And if this video was helpful, subscribe and hit the notification bell. I put market updates and Tri-Valley content regularly. So I'll see you guys in the next one.